They're coming from all over the Alabama territory. Plantation owners, professional men, farmers, and laborers. 44 men elected by the people of the Alabama territory. 44 men to face the great issues of our times. The territorial legislature passed the petition for statehood last year. Now it's the responsibility of the people to set up a constitution. These are heady times. Families moving into the territory from all over the country, all over the world. Here we are with more than 60,000 people, the number required by the Northwest Ordinance for admission into the Union. We had a big election to get delegates, and the Constitutional Convention is right here in Huntsville. Huntsville didn't hardly exist 20 years ago, and now it's a real live town. 3-story buildings, a town square. Oh, who am I? Why, I'm the spirit of the times. Come on, let's join them. See that fella coming in over there? That's John Williams Walker, a Huntsvillian, Speaker of the Alabama Territorial House. It was unanimous. He's been elected president of this Constitutional Convention. Has the makings of a U.S. Senator, don't you think? And there's another Huntsvillian, Mr. Clement C. Clay. 8 years ago, he came from Tennessee with 1 servant, 2 horses, and enough money to get by for a few days. Now look at him. He's a respected lawyer, veteran of the Indian Wars, a member of the territorial legislature down at St. Stephen's, and the chairman of the Committee of 15 chosen to draft the Constitution. Mark my words, that young man has a bright future ahead of him. Not everyone's from Huntsville. Mr. William Rufus King lives in Dallas County. He's a newcomer to South Alabama, lived there about a year. When he lived in North Carolina, he was a U.S. congressman, so he knows a lot about government. Most all of the delegates do. Politics and government seem to be everyone's favorite topic of conversation these days. That and the price of cotton. General John Coffee there was General Andrew Jackson's aide in the Creek War and at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend. Now he's territorial surveyor, and I expect he'll be the surveyor when we become a state. Coffee's a delegate from Florence and a regular pioneer over there. They've been at it since the 5th day of July this year of our Lord 1819, with the Committee of 15 presenting their recommendations to the whole convention on the 13th.
Well, that's just not the way we see it. The most important issue here is the sovereignty of the people. And the qualification of those what's going to vote is the central issue.
We are just as committed to sovereignty of the people as you are, but we believe that the federal principle will be more equitable.
They agree that the power of the state comes from the people, not from a king or a ruler. We won that battle in the Revolution. So just exactly who will have the right to vote when Alabama is a state? What will be the basis of representation in the legislature? Will Alabama only count white men, or will slaves be counted too? With both small landholders and many large plantations, if slaves are counted, the plantation owners will have more power in the legislature. If they are not, the plainmen will gain an upper hand.
No, look, I said the count is based only on white men.
But think about it. In our county, we might have 1,000 men and only a handful of them white. It's not fair. I say go with the federal principle. 5 slaves count for 3 white men when it comes to representation.
This debate's been raging since the Committee of 15 brought the proposed Constitution to the whole convention.
I say we should have 2 bodies. Representation in one can be based on the population. In the other, each district gets 1 representative, no matter how many people live there.
And they haven't even gotten started on the part of the Constitution which deals with the rights of slaves, but they will. It must be noon. Looks like everyone's going to dinner. And that'll shut down the town for a while. What is that wonderful smell? I always wish I were more than a spirit come dinner time. They've been cooking since dawn.
My dear, you remember our distinguished guest from South Alabama.
Ma'am, thanks for your hospitality. It seems as though we've been away from home for quite a while.
You delegates are the talk of the town.
Have they decided yet how the sheriff gets elected?
It's not final, but it looks as though the people will prevail.
Well, being elected by the people makes sense for the county's chief executive officer.
You'd say so since you're the sheriff.
I've been following the convention in Mr. Boardman's paper.
Oh, do you suppose Boardman would mind a visit? We've been thinking of starting a newspaper ourselves.
We can go there after dinner.
Oh, good.
Boardman's quite a character. Comes from Connecticut, you know, and always has a project.
So I've heard, so I've heard.
While they're all at dinner and the hall's free, I want to show you something. The building was Walker Allen's cabinet shop just last year. It was the only building in town big enough to hold all 44 of the delegates. They've moved his things to the back now. Look at this. Built the workbench himself. Holds things down with that bench vise, hatchets and froes, mallets, saws, planes, gouges, and chisels for fancy work, hand-turned lathe. When you have to make all the furniture there is and do it by hand, it takes a lot of tools. The cabinet maker is even a part-time blacksmith because he needs to make tools. No doubt learned it when he was an apprentice. Say, that's Rob, the printer's devil. That's what we call an apprentice to the printer. He's probably dropping off another draft of the Constitution. The devil won't even know it if we tag along back to Boardman's print shop. Boardman publishes the Alabama Republican. You know, Boardman's the printer who got the job to print Alabama's first public laws. When the convention is finished, they'll have to send that Constitution on to Washington, D.C., and every single word of the whole thing will have to be put together one letter at a time. Good thing they keep all those letters separate. Capital letters up here in the uppercase, small letters down here in the lowercase. It's a good bet Mr. Boardman will print the Constitution, too, when the delegates get it done. Yes, sir, pretty good bet. And people round here bet on just about anything these days.
John, I'd like you to meet one of our distinguished delegates to the convention.
Yes, welcome. I've been following your debates.
Your newspaper interests me.
Well, I'll be delighted to show you around. But let me send the boy for the mail first.
Oh, I'm expecting a letter. Will I have time to answer it?
The horse and rider stay over about 3 hours.
Good.
Here, come over here.
The convention is the biggest news in the state this summer, and Boardman's paper will tell a lot of people all over the state what's going on. Thank goodness the mail now almost always comes in and goes out once a week.
Oh, Miss Nell, I was expecting you.
How much do I owe you?
2 letters from Virginia, that's 60 cents, and a newspaper from Washington, that's 27 3/4 cents.
Well, this is good news. It certainly is expensive. We still have time to meet Mr. Neal when he leaves the library. Clement Comer Clay's family isn't alone in value in education.
Some town, don't you think? A real library. Though Mrs. Neal can't go in, women aren't permitted to use the library. Horse racing and quilting bees aren't the only form of entertainment. We're a very sophisticated town now. You can find fancy dancing and a good public speech most every week. Mrs. Neal has her hands full.
Garden's doing well this year. Plenty of medicinal herbs and should be lots of vegetables to put by. It's not like we have a plantation to send us supplies like some folks. Cider to be made, laundry to be done, fish and game to catch and clean. Chickens and pigs doing fine. All the bacon. It sure is a lot better now that we can buy flour and cornmeal. Grinding it was tedious, and with salt easier to get, all the food tastes better. 1,000 details. Never enough water, never enough candles, soap to be made. And even though we can now buy some cloth in the shops on the square, we can always find ways to use homespun. One good thing, since it's summer, we don't have to worry about keeping the house warm.
What was I saying? Oh, yes, the spirit of the times. 1819 in Alabama. the frontier coming face to face with an aristocracy based on the plantation slavery system. There will be many an issue to work out in this hall. Lots of important issues these delegates must decide.
We still haven't decided how much power the governor should have, where the legislature should come in, and what about the judges? Should they be elected or appointed, and who should do that?
Well, first we need to settle on who gets to vote. Even if we end up with white men aged 21 or older eligible to vote, we need a regular census.
Must a man hold property or be in the militia to vote?
Where should the state capital be? St. Stephen's is just not acceptable.
The Northwest Ordinance said that schools and the means of education shall forever be encouraged. Will that be true here?
What role should the state play in the economy and in dealing with the banks?
And what about slavery? Slaves have rights too.
Interesting men, these 44. Lawyers, physicians, ministers, a merchant, planters and farmers, laboring men, and one surveyor. 9 of them were in the Alabama Territorial Legislature or were territorial judges, and 5 more were judges or legislators in the states from which they came. A distinguished group. 6 of these men will one day be governor. 6 will be judges of the Supreme Court. 6 will be United States senators, and 1 a vice president of the United States. All 44 will have a profound effect on the course of Alabama's future. So many questions, such important answers. What does the future hold? I can reveal to you the spirit of the times, but it's up to those who will come after us to decide how well we did.
Alabama became a state on December 14, 1819. The decisions made by 44 men at the Constitutional Convention held in Huntsville, Alabama through the hot summer of 1819 shaped the very future of Alabama for more than 150 years.